In the dead of night, air raid alarms began to blare across Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait as missiles and drones entered the airspace. The temporary ceasefire between the United States and Iran, anchored by a fragile memorandum of understanding, had collapsed. The trigger occurred in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian forces struck 3 commercial vessels navigating the vital waterway. President Donald Trump declared the pause in fighting officially over, issuing a public warning that U.S. retribution for the ship attacks would be much worse. The severity of the situation became clear on a tarmac in Turkey. Following a NATO summit, the president swapped out his newly gifted Boeing 747 for an older model of Air Force One to fly home. That older aircraft houses the highly secure military command and control systems required to manage an active, escalating conflict from the sky. With the ceasefire broken, command systems locked in, and fresh strikes launching, are we watching a spiral into an unpredictable regional war, or is this exchange highly calculated? The U.S. military retaliated swiftly to the targeting of those commercial ships, but for the first time since the ceasefire began, the United States deliberately bypassed standard defensive targets and struck domestic Iranian infrastructure. This map shows the exact targets. In northern Akala, cruise missiles hit 2 rail bridges, disrupting transit. Moving south, forces struck an Iran Shah airport and Chabahar Maritime Control Tower. This countrywide footprint makes the strategic message clear. The U.S. can dismantle Iranian infrastructure at will. Meanwhile, Tehran was facing intense domestic pressure. The country was in the middle of a massive, multi-day funeral for their martyred supreme leader, demanding a strong public display of military force. To satisfy that demand, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps publicly announced a joint drone and missile operation aimed directly at U.S.-occupied bases. This regional map illustrates the IRGC's targets: U.S. installations in Kuwait, including Arifjan and Ali Al Salim, and facilities in Bahrain like Jufair and Sheikh Issa. But this followed a pattern. Iran has launched identical attacks at these exact bases over the past several months. By selecting heavily defended, known military targets, like the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters, and avoiding U.S. energy infrastructure, Iran executed a contained response. This retaliation allowed Tehran to satisfy domestic anger, without forcing the United States into a massive boots-on-the-ground counterattack. The two nations are executing very different strategies. The U.S. escalated to punish economic infrastructure, while Iran retaliated strictly to save face and maintain the status quo. To see the short-term reality of this choreography, we have to look at the reaction of global oil markets. This chart tracks global oil prices during the exact hours these strikes and retaliations were breaking news. The trend line is completely flat. Financial institutions barely flinched, proving they have already priced in this normalized tit-for-tat tension. This brings us to a stark geopolitical reality. Formal diplomacy and memorandums of understanding have completely stalled. Without negotiations, kinetic strikes and military pressure are now the primary tools of communication between Washington and Tehran. And sitting right in the middle of this exchange is the Strait of Hormuz, the ultimate bargaining chip, maintained by an armed tactical grip on the maritime choke point. The world is witnessing the highly choreographed, dangerous routine of a modern forever war.